Hey everyone, and welcome to the new Norm with Selena Hill on Black Enterprise. Today I have the privilege to speak with attorney and broadcaster Eboni K. Williams, who made history as the first Black woman to be cast on the Real Housewives of New York. And oh my, it has been quite a season. Thank you so much for joining us, Eboni.
Thank you, Miss Selena. I appreciate it.
Yeah, Eboni, we've been talking for years, and I've watched your career pretty much evolve. You know, you started off as a public defender before working in broadcast news for stations like CBS, Fox News Channel, and most recently as the host of Revolt Black News. So I want to sort of ask and start this conversation by saying, why did you decide to take this turn into reality television?
In two words, Selena, the audience. The audience. You're in the business. You've been in it for many years as well, and I'm just thrilled to see your growth as well, sis. It's phenomenal. But so much of what we do is to connect with a particular audience. And as you stated, I have been so blessed to be able to do my work in front of audiences in the cable news space. I've been able to work even in the sports space, doing some work for Fox Sports, NFL Network. I've been able to very graciously work in Black media spaces at Revolt and adjacent frequent guest for the Breakfast Club. I saw my friend Charlamagne and Angela Yee. We missed Envy just this week. So those audiences are critically important. But there's a different audience that consumes reality television, and particularly the Real Housewives franchises, which I believe is the crown jewel of reality television, particularly for women. And so knowing that so much of what I represent and what my gifts lean into, really I felt could be appreciated by and maybe needed by an audience that's a little different than the usual news audience or Black media audience, an intersection of those and then some. And that's what the opportunity I get to do as a Real Housewife.
Before we get into some of the scenes that I think everyone is talking about, I want to ask you, as a longtime Housewives fan, did this experience meet or exceed your expectations?
A mix of both. I mean, it's met my expectations in two important ways, Selena. Number one, again, the impact. I took on this role to have incredible impact to people that maybe was never going to be able to reach or connect with in my previous work. And I know for a fact that's happening. Every time I leave my house, I am greeted with warm greetings and love from a variety of different types of New Yorkers, saying various things about what impacts them, what makes them feel important. Everything from, I think the obvious, of course, is my indulgence of Black excellence and my insistence on showing up in that space, but also so many women, Selena, that have been so grateful to my friendship with Sonia Morgan and my ability to pour into her as a woman of high worth and let her know that about herself. I've had a lot of tremendous feedback around that. I've had so many people of all different backgrounds reach out and say they never knew their father either. They never knew their father either. And to see me go on this journey at 37 years old and try to find that answer for the first time gives them hope, and makes them know they're not alone in that space as kind of fatherless daughters. So that's just a few ways in which this platform has given me more than I could have ever imagined by way of connection. So I'll leave it there.
Yeah, no, I'm so glad that you mentioned that because just watching you in your career, Eboni, you've always, or at least came across as a very private person when it came to personal matters.
Yeah.
What did it feel like to go public to talk about your breakup? You were engaged, and then that didn't turn out the way you expected, and then also your father and the family issues, and then your grandmother. All of this plays out in the series, in the season. How did that feel?
Scary. All that stuff was scary, right? Because it's not just me. There's myself, and while I do not name him, of course there's still a concern for my then fiance and how this might impact him emotionally, and I still very much care for the man. So there's that, but there's also the fact that as an alcohol holder on this platform, I have a responsibility to share my full truth, right? So that it can be used as a powerful point of connection to viewers and audience. So that's another place where women and men and non-binaries who have been in relationships where they didn't feel number one have said it's been really important to hear you say you require being number one, and there's nothing wrong with it. Because I think so much in society shames those of us that require that in our romantic life, and encourages us, especially women, to be okay with being third or fourth or fifth on the priority ring. And for some people that works, but if you're somebody who needs to be number one, it's okay to say you need to be number one. So that's been cool. Sharing about my grandmother was really therapeutic, actually. And the episode where I really opened up and, you know, Bravo put in the edit her photos and you see me as a little girl and my grandma and everything. My mom happened to be visiting me in New York for Mother's Day weekend when that episode aired, and she just burst into tears, which made me cry. But it was beautiful tears, Selena, because she was like, Grandma, Katie, my grandma would have loved this. She would have loved to have been revered and have her legacy on this. She wouldn't be able to believe it, you know, that she is, you know, now been on Real Housewives of New York with her beautiful self. So,
and she started off, as you said, as a domestic servant. And to just see her legacy living through you, I can only imagine how proud she was and would have been.
Absolutely. Yeah. And to be able to share that with my castmates, you know, as a part of getting to know me and a part of why, how we refer to people, right, in their professional capacity is important. So in those ways, I mean, it's just been really spectacular.
It has. And, you know, speaking of your castmates, you got, there's a lot of clashes and chaos and infighting. Obviously, I think what comes to mind for most of us is that infamous scene where Luann depicted you as an angry Black woman. She called you an angry woman, and we know what the implications behind that. And there was a very long scene. When you watched that play out, how did you feel? Were you retriggered? How did that feel?
Yeah, it was definitely re-traumatizing to see it play out, to see energy that happened around it that I didn't even catch in real time. Um, and yeah, it's hard because then you continue filming the season and other things happen and you make progress. And then when you watch that back and you tune into how your castmates are responding on social media to these scenes, it all has an impact. It all has an impact.
Did you see a response on social media that you found disappointing or uncomfortable?
I did. I did.
What was it?
Well, you know, it was a tweet that Luann put out. She subsequently deleted it.
Okay.
It was a meme of her singing her Money Can't Buy You Class song, hashtag Roni. I thought it was in poor taste.
Yeah.
In contradiction with what I assumed to be a very sincere apology that she ended up giving in the episode that followed. So that was disappointing.
I mean, I can only imagine. But as you even say on the show and in some other interviews, the microaggressions and the stereotypes and just the racism that you were coming up against, whether intentional or non, that exists. That's an experience many Black women have to go through and continue to go through. What advice would you give us about dealing with microaggressions and fighting stereotypes, especially in professional environments?
Well, you know, there's more than one way to skin a cat, as my grandmother would say. So I'm not saying that my prescription is for everyone, Selena, but for me, I treat microaggressions like roaches. If you don't kill them when you see them, they will continue to come. So I take it upon myself to, when it is said either to me or around me, even, it doesn't have to be even directed to me personally, I have to call a thing in real time. So people learn to cease that behavior, because we have to make it patently unacceptable. I personally think it is a disservice when we kind of pick and choose when to call things out and when we don't, because it can inadvertently send a message that sometimes it's okay. And I want to be really clear. It's actually never okay. It's never okay to call a Black woman angry for expressing emotion. It's never okay to call a Black woman articulate for her ability to be a fully educated a human in this space. It's never okay to lean into white fragility when you just don't want to hear what a Black person's saying. So I'm going to call a thing at every turn.
You know what? While watching this season, I said they got the right one, because you don't play that, and they're not going to, those little subtle remarks, you know, started what we saw, started with the help, and then it progressed, and then you call it out, and you always, you know, you present a case. I mean, as an attorney. So you did a great job at that. But at times, I also saw, you know, that pressure to uphold Black excellence. I feel like that is something that we feel we have to do, right? Because we know we're carrying the weights of so many other Black people. And if something goes wrong, it gives them leverage to say, see, this is why, you know, we can't go with that person or this person. You see how they are. How does that dynamic play out when, you know, you exude Black excellence, but sometimes you just want to be human?
Yeah, you know, I appreciate that, love, sis, but it's also, I have to, but I also get to, is how I choose to look at it, right? And listen, make no mistake about it, Selena, we happen to work in the public sphere and we happen to have cameras in front of us. This is really not that different than how I felt when I was a practicing attorney. It's not that different than how some third grade teacher feels right now. It's not that different than how some sister who's a bank executive feels every day when she goes into her office. Any person who represents a marginalized community, whether that be Black, Asian, LGBTQ+, autistic, anything, right? Where you are underrepresented in a space, you know you have the disproportionate responsibility to show up with excellence so that the people behind you have an easier time, so that they can access those spaces that you get to access and you deserve to access in a way that allows for me to be the first and never the last.
Eboni, did you ever feel othered while taping Real Housewives of New York?
Yeah, all the time. But again, I think in ways that Black and brown people feel other daily in any workplace. You know, there were instances where unfortunately it was more pronounced than others. Listen, I do think there was a general overall good faith effort by the production company, by the network, and by most of my castmates to make me feel extremely comfortable. Because I think everybody more or less everybody really felt it was overdue for a Black woman or at least a woman of some color with that lens to represent New York, because New York is 55% Black and Latina when it comes to female population. So I think that there was a lot of buy-in from the overall team, and most everybody I worked with really made at least the effort to make me feel a part of and overdue as a part of this cast.
When the opportunity was first presented to you, what was that like? Did you jump at it? Did you take some time to think about it? And how did that even come about?
Yeah, you know, Selena, they were talking to, you know, so many people that you know and I know, and most any Black woman probably between 34 and, you know, on up the list. And I felt just, you know, really always open to the conversation. I had no real decision because, you know, in this business, to me, I always like to procure options. And then once an option is presented to me, then I'll analyze my decision-making part as to whether or not to take said opportunity. So with Roni, you know, I was extremely enthusiastic to go through the casting process, knowing that there's no promises made until, you know, there's an offer. So once the offer was made, that's when I really put, you know, pen to paper and started associating what the risk assessment looked like to join this show and join a reality platform in general. And I just decided, Selena, that the ability to do what has manifested, right, which is connect with all kinds of people and globally, which is also different, right? This is a real global platform. I have people from Belgium, Australia, South Africa, you know, you name it. Reaching out to me, expressing connection to personal parts of my story and my, you know, work. So it became an easy decision around the impact.
You know, and I really love seeing your story play out too. on camera
Have
and
you
just
been surprised, Selena, as somebody who has known me in the business for what, 7 or so years now? Has anything surprised you?
no. I feel like you showed up very authentic. I feel like you give people who you are. We see the attorney, maybe some of the vulnerability, seeing you cry, I think is something that's not, I don't want to say out of character, but it's just not something that a lot of us have seen, maybe your very close, intimate network. So that part, but you know, it was coming. But I don't know. I really think you were really good at being you. Like I said, they got the right one, and you represent so well. You really do. You
Thank
really do. That being said, are there any moments that you know, watch back and sort of regretted what you said or how you came across?
The only thing so far I could say I've truly regretted was when I wanted to speak to Leah about my hope that she vote in this recent election, because I think every person that can vote should vote. And I particularly think so when it came to the election for 2020, because the stakes were so high. And as a Black woman, they were particularly high. We were looking at 5 times the rate of our white counterparts for maternal mortality. When we're talking about a huge discrepancy rather in our abilities to earn wealth significantly in this country, all the things. That was all on the ballot. So I said to my friend, I really hope you vote. And ultimately she chose to. But I also included Heather Thompson in my plea. And that was unnecessary. I could have left Heather out of it completely. I didn't need to soften the argument by bringing in somebody else. I'm a big grown ass woman, and I could have just went to Leah straight up. This is how I feel. This is exclusively my feeling, and left it alone.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I do know we have to wrap up, but ultimately, what impact do you hope to make and leave? And then also, what is next for Eboni K. Williams? Any more surprises or pivots in your career?
Yeah. The answer, yes, there is. Stay tuned. The first question, my impact legacy on this show, I always take every day as if it's my last. So I think it can be, to me, a mistake when people get access to a platform that is this incredible. And to me, they don't maximize it. So my intention was to maximize it. You know this, Selena, because you have known me for many years now. I am born to be able to be a credit to my race. I am born to do that work. I have been extremely blessed and privileged to be spiritually called to do this work. I've studied it at the academic level, and I live it every day. And it is my benevolent honor to be a Black woman. It's my favorite thing about me. And so I hope my impact is to demonstrate that, to be able to share a bit of understanding around Blackness that sadly very few people have, including other Black people. And just tell a different story about Blackness that is not around only our trauma story, only the victimization that we've had to endure, and only our subordination. Those are truths to the Black experience, no doubt. But we are also titans of industry in fine arts, in academia, in social justice, and in all spaces. So I hope that is my legacy. And of course, we slay. So there's that. So.
Oh, and slay you did. Will you do more reality TV?
I don't know. I really don't. The network gets to make a decision at the end of this season as to whether any of us are invited back. And once they make their offers, we get to contemplate, whether or not we want to accept. So we're ways from that. We're only halfway through the season, Miss Selena. So we got a ways to go.
Absolutely. Eboni, it is always a pleasure to speak with you, to hear from you. Thank you for leading by example. You are a shining star and an inspiration to so many of us. So thank you.